come on, if we've got to be here after work, let's enjoy it, eh? Speaking of enjoying it, have you all had refreshment? Yeah. Well, 2 of you have. So Northwest Tester Gathering is completely free. We don't charge, we don't ask for a subscription. We're not going to try and sell you anything. Chris might. I've seen your cards in the phone box. But tonight is being sponsored by
10.
And to talk about 10 is Amy Newton.
Okay, as she said, we are Manchester Tester Gathering, Northwest Tester Gathering. So that's our Twitter handle and that's our hashtag. So please do feel free to get involved and get on there. Just a little bit about us and what we do. So we're a bi-monthly free event based in Manchester. We're not for profit, so we're not associated with any particular one company. We are Amy Newton, Ken Fulton and Phil Hughes. Just a little bit of a note on that. Phil does all of the videos and the photos completely for free for us, and he does this for Manchester and he does it for Liverpool Tester Gathering. It takes him about 10 hours to do each one, and he does it every month for free. So can we have a round of applause for Phil, please? Our lovely sponsors pay for all the food and drinks. Spaceport very kindly give us this lovely venue for free, so please respect it. We're run by the testing community for the community, so if any of you would like to do a talk at any point or you'd like to submit any ideas for a talk that you would like to see, just get back to us on Twitter, we will follow you back. A little bit of a code of conduct. So this is a safe space for people to come together and chat about testing after work, so please be respectful of everybody's views, even if they're saying something you don't necessarily agree with, because it's nice to be nice. Code of conduct number 2, so this is a user group, it's not networking, so you won't be approached by any recruiters trying to give you a business card, any consultancies trying to pitch you, or anybody trying to sell you anything. The difference is it's a user group, which means that it's just kind of ran by the peers for people to just chat, so no one will approach you about that. And please feed the feedback box, it gets hungry, and it's hiding over there, so on your way out, if you can give us a bit of feedback, that'd be great. Just boring stuff that I think Stu maybe covered. The loos are in that direction, as are the fire exits. Please be kind to the venue. So we're going to have a talk about the sponsor, then Chris is doing a talk, then you'll get a chance to have a break. Please have some more drinks and some more pizza, and then we're having some talks, and then we'll be having drinks at bakery afterwards. So, weirdly, I'm the sponsor, so I'm going to stay here for a while, if that's okay. So the sponsor is 10, which is the company that I work for. So we are a professional services recruitment company. We specialise in the provision of permanent and contract technical candidates across testing, development, BI and data, UX, UI, infrastructure and business change. We have offices in Manchester, Leeds, Birmingham and London, but possibly a little bit more applicable to anyone who's in the room here. The testing QA practice for the company is run out of Manchester. So I look after all the contract roles UK-wide, but permanent Northwest and Yorkshire. So if anybody saw Dan on the way in tonight, he looks after Yorkshire now, which is good. Our approach is candidate-focused for a candidate-driven market. And I was told by our marketing department that this would all be really boring unless I included some stats. So luckily they did all this for me. So thanks for the feedback, guys. I've been specialising in recruiting testers for 3 years. Exclusively in the Northwest. In that time, I've placed 104 contract testers, 72 permanent testers, touch wood no one leaves after tonight, and I am exclusively based in the Northwest. In that time, there's been 36 different clients in and around Manchester that I've placed testers into. And my interview ratios apparently are 75%, which means that 3/4 of anybody I agree to work with gets an interview, and my placement ratio is 1 in 3, which again, marketing people are very excited by these numbers. These are the types of testers that I recruit, so I won't leave that on there for too long because you all know what that is. And in terms of clients, I don't have any couple of big clients that I work with, but the ones that I do tend to be spread across lots of different industries. As long as they hire testers, then I can work with them. And our values, which I have to get on the slide so that I could get the money for the beer, are expert, value and connected. So if you'd like to contact me, as I said earlier on, I'm really not pushy, and I hope any of you who know me will know that. So if anybody wants a job or you just want a bit of a chat, those are my contact details. Please approach me because I won't be pestering you. And enjoy the talks. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. If your company or your organisation is interested, please approach either Amy or myself, one of the members of the team. Hopefully you noticed when you sat down today, there was a couple of Promotional items from Amy, thank you. You'll need these afterwards. Honestly, officer, I haven't been drinking. But the pen and the post-it note were there for a reason. Later on, as Amy had on one of the slides, we're going to be doing a couple of goldfish bowl sessions. So if you've got a burning question, something that's really eating away at you with regards to testing, nothing about your boss or anything personal like that, we all have those issues, then stick it on a post-it note, and hopefully when we have the goldfish bowl sessions, we'll be able to answer those. There should be, I reckon, around about 1,000 years worth of knowledge in the room, so why not tap into that? So on that note, a quick question. How many of you in the room are testers? Let's see a show of hands. Okay, that's pretty good. How many of you are software developers? Very brave, well done. Any BAs? Business analysts? No. Project managers? No. Salesmen? No. All right. So that's pretty good. I see a lot of new faces in the room tonight as well. So how many are new faces? Let's just show of hands. Fantastic. Welcome. So as I said, we don't ask for a fee. We're not asking for a subscription. I'm not going to ask you to pray at the end. Nothing weird like that. We're not a cult. This really is by testers, for testers. So if you want to get involved, if you want to do a talk, if you've got something you want to share, if you have an idea, please approach us. We'd love to hear from you. If you want to get involved, even if it's stacking chairs, help putting pizza boxes in the bin, meet people and greet people on the door when you come in, please come and see us and get involved. So, moving on to the main attraction. You've been called worse. Tonight we've got Chris Thacker, who's going to talk about
automation. Hello everybody, I'm just going to start here. So this talk is called Automation My Way. It was originally supposed to be designed a talk about automation, and you don't really have to worry about it. I think it's a big thing in the testing community at the moment that everyone seems to think that automation is like the kind of be all and end all, and we don't really need to worry about exploratory testing. I will be honest with you, I talked to Amy when I decided about it and had a few drinks. It was supposed to be a 5-minute lightning talk. So I've kind of had to expand it and have kind of gone to a bit of an automation rah-rah. So I think Stu's already said I'm Chris Thacker. I'm the lead QA at LateRooms. I've worked for companies ranging from small startups up to big multinationals with over 350,000 people. The reason I say that is so that I've worked in different contexts of testing. I've not just worked at the kind of really small companies where I can do what I want, or really big companies where my computers are like locked down and I can't do anything. So I've kind of worked over the full gamut. I was a developer before I was a tester. This kind of helps, I think, kind of crystallise my thinking about testing. Danny's bored already, he's just looking straight ahead. So the kind of aim of the talk is to kind of talk through my experiences and kind of use them as a mirror to kind of chart the industry, so I suppose, from the kind of early 2006 when I graduated uni. Yes, I am only 30, I'm not 50, like probably some of you think. And then kind of like talk about some tips and tricks I've picked up in the way. So, as I've kind of mentioned, where does this talk originate? I see a lot of people in the industry talking about I want to be an automation tester, I want to be an automator. And I think what people kind of don't understand is you don't really learn automation. You kind of learn coding and kind of coding principles and practices, which you apply to writing test kind of code. And I think it's a bit of a misconception that you mean, I'll teach somebody Selenium and then they'll become some sort of automation guru. The idea is you learn about coding and you apply that to like testing principles. So you still need your kind of testing mindset, but you'll kind of apply the kind of principles at a coding level. So I thought, is this just me who's kind of thinking these things, or I'll have a bit of a look in the industry. You know, obviously 10 sponsoring, so I thought I'll have a look at some job adverts. So these are some recent job adverts, not by 10, but by like kind of on the DICE website. So a lot of them, I think the kind of top 10 were all mentioning some sort of automation slant. So it was kind of things like, you know, we do a bit of Selenium, can you do some SOAP UI, these kind of things. I think what I'm trying to use my talk to talk about tonight is to say, yeah, that's great, but are you being as effective as you can with your automation? So what I'll do is I'll start with the first company I work for. So I'm fresh out of university. I started at a startup in the startup space. We had no testing capability whatsoever. It was just not something we did. I was a web analyst, so I was there to kind of help build websites for the companies that were using our system and to help fix any issues that it came. We were using software as a service before that became a buzzword. One of the things we did was we didn't know how many people were using our application, so we implemented a license key system. The only problem was that when everyone turned it on that day, it just didn't work. So what did? We had people ringing us up, so we decided to build a quick solution that say, generate us a license key. jobs are good and that'll fix it. The only problem was we didn't realise when we hit 1,000 license keys, we started again from the beginning and overwritten again. So with a couple of 100,000 people using our solution, we were down for 2 days. Everyone from the CEO downwards was answering phone calls. I still remember the developer walking into the CEO's office, and I sat with my back to the CEO's office, and as he walked in, the CEO smiling like that, the CEO goes, "What the fuck are you laughing at?" And just literally, his face was just a picture. He left the company about 2-3 weeks later, and he wasn't sacked, but I don't think he wanted to work for us anymore. So after a couple of years here, I moved on to another company. It was a consultancy firm. It was a testing firm. So my first project was governance for a financial institution. I still remember to this day walking in and knowing the software testing lifecycle as I do now, we had different rooms in the building for different parts of the software testing lifecycle. It's crazy to think that this is probably, 2008, and we had a system testing room, a UAT testing room, and in these rooms, we had test analysts lined up in a row with test leads at the end, and then a test manager in the room overseeing the whole operation. A test analyst could execute tests, but could not write tests. They could only go to a test lead who would then say, nope, that test's wrong, rewrite it and send it back to them. There was no kind of thinking or kind of testing allowed. It was basically manual checking. So QTP I've mentioned there, I don't know if people know, it stands for Quick Test Pro. So when I joined this company, they threw me on a 3-week boot camp in South Africa. Pound a Pint, brilliant place if anyone's never been there. And one of the things that they taught us was how we could automate using this said solution. So I was kind of like, why aren't people using this Quick Test Pro? Why, you know what I mean? We're paying all these people to kind of do all this kind of manual checking we can do by the automation. Why is that not the case? So I spent a couple more years at the same company, and on my final project, it was a project for a gas and electricity supplier. We were doing smart metering, you know, them in the home that send things out. So it was an agile project, and we were learning agile at the company. The guys involved, it was massive. It was like over 100 odd people. There was a kind of squad product model, but it was kind of the blind leading the blind in all seriousness. We were testing a sprint behind the developers, so it was kind of mini waterfall in all seriousness. And you know, we used QTP for our automation. So yeah, it was great, but we used a thing called BPT. I don't know if people know it, but it's business process testing. The idea behind it was automation testers could write little nuggets of code which then a non-automation tester could pick up and kind of put together, kind of like a bit of Lego. So it was the kind of first stab at getting non-automators to become automated testers. It didn't work particularly great because it kind of took a lot of effort to make the kind of modules fit together. It wasn't like Lego where there was a lot of like blocks you could just stick them straight together. But it was the kind of first approach, and it was the kind of big way in the industry at the beginning. So I left this company and moved back to a telecommunications firm. So it was called the RAD team. We didn't call ourselves that because we thought we were really cool. So, do you know what? That took me ages to come up with that joke, and this is the best I've got. So we stood for rapid application development. So we were an agile team in a waterfall organisation. Thank God you did not record that, did you? Oh God. So the brief for this team was to come in and implement automated testing. So what I did was kind of simply, you know, we all know our kind of ISQB. It was like stick some unit tests and integration testing from the devs. I'll write some end-to-end kind of functional tests at the top with Selenium. But the problem with that is there was too much work coming from the devs. They were writing code too quick for me to be able to keep up. So I kind of switched tacts and thought, right, how can I approach this better? So what I did is I brought Jeb onto the scene. Jeb is a Groovy tool we were writing in Groovy. So the idea behind using Jeb was that it allowed the developers to write tests themselves with no kind of context switching, going into Java or C# as Selenium was at the time, and allowed them to write tests. And then what I would do is I would do demonstrations with them. So I would kind of look at the tests. I would do some kind of manual kind of exploratory testing with the devs and try and understand what they'd done. It was the first time, I suppose, I moved from being a tester to a kind of test facilitator. I lost one person already. My developer demonstrations, I'll kind of sit with the devs and say, what have you done? What are your tests? Look at them, pair with them, and kind of work that way. I still remember one project I worked on. It was a data center power project, and the kind of developer was like, yeah, it works, don't worry about it, it's brilliant. We could create a data center. We could edit a data center. When we tried to edit the next data center, it just fell apart. So that kind of got me thinking, you know, I'd kind of been thinking automation, it's brilliant, it does everything for us. And I started to understand that that isn't really necessarily the 100% way to go forward. I mentioned Robot Framework there. So Robot Framework, it's a keyword-driven solution. If everyone's seen it, it's on top of Selenium. You can kind of choose your functions and say, right, this is what it does. And hopefully the idea is non-testers, again, can start to write tests. I pass this over to the BAs and the users, and the idea with this was for the kind of users to start to write functional tests and basically cut me out the loop. As you can appreciate, I've got the devs writing tests, I've got the users writing tests, I'm feet up on the desk, I'm chilling here, no problem whatsoever. The only problem was it kind of became a big support headache. I had to write a lot of kind of keywords for the kind of BAs to use, and it didn't really work as well as I'd hoped. I mentioned monitoring at the bottom. So monitoring is something that you'll probably come further on in the talk, but it starts to become a really valuable tool. One of the things that I kind of do a lot at LateRooms and at other places is we push stuff into live and we check, does it work, and are people actually using it? This was the kind of first time I'd really had the opportunity to do that. I was so kind of close to the ops team, which I hadn't had at the kind of previous engagements. It started to become a kind of way for me to work. So I kind of finished up there and went back to kind of startup days. So I was working for a security startup. So one of the main things I realized there was it took me a couple of days, it took the teams a couple of days to generate some environments. So that seemed ripe to me to automate. Rather than just in the past, we're kind of thinking about automation as testing. We need to start thinking about how we can speed up the environment delivery as opposed to manually kind of creating these ourselves. I was on a project, and one of the big problems with the project was the quality was just variable. Sometimes I'd get a drop and it was brilliant, sometimes I'd get a drop and it was poor. I just couldn't tell. So I built myself some quick smoke tests in Selenium. The idea being it just scan the surface of the application and just say, yeah, this thing's fit for purpose. It became a really handy quality gate between myself and the developer, and it only took me like an hour or two to kind of build these tests, but it saved me countless hours in having to kind of pick up the application, move it into my environment, and start to run a lot of kind of manual or exploratory tests on there. So it's a really kind of handy thing for me. And then I mentioned there at the bottom, developer testing being important. That's really key. I think that's probably one of the reasons I had to build some smoke tests. I think you get a lot of old companies or old style companies where they kind of throw things over the wall. And touch wood, I think I've kind of got away from that and been able to embed that kind of quality culture in a lot of the teams where, there's no split between dev and kind of test. So moving on to the kind of last company, LateRooms. So the first quote there is we sell hotels. Apparently we don't sell hotels. We sell space and time in hotel rooms, according to some people on my team after speaking to them today. So we've got a great quality culture, which means everybody takes ownership of testing. That's great and really easy for me to say. This is the company I work for at the minute. But I've got quite a lot of the guys here today, I think, who back me up on that. So you can't test quality in. One person in a team helping testing or putting quality into a team doesn't work. It has to come from idea inception to kind of release. All the devs have to care about it, the PO, the BAs, the testers, everybody has to care about quality. One person writing tests at the end is not going to make you a quality product. The kind of approach we take is we write some automation alongside exploratory testing. The idea behind that is the automation takes away the kind of boring, repetitive kind of checking that we have to do, and then it gives the kind of QAs more time to do exploratory testing. Automation isn't a silver bullet, doesn't fix all your problems. The only thing it does is kind of does the things that are repeatable for you, so that it kind of gives you more time to think and act as a QA, and that's my personal opinion. We talk about monitoring, testing, and live. We release so much stuff, can I say, into live without properly checking it in the kind of traditional manner. I suppose the reason being is it takes us so long to kind of check. So we bring in a lot of rates and kind of things from external companies. We don't always have an endpoint that will work in test for that. So sometimes the quickest way is just to push it into live, say, does that endpoint work? And if it does, great. If not, we can roll it back and we'll know within 20, 30 seconds. And then we talk about crowdsourcing there at the end. So we use internal and external crowdsourcing. So it's about trying to get rid of perhaps the more repetitive and boring nature of a kind of tester in terms of the checking part of it, and kind of outsource that and try and give the guys internally who've got the kind of knowledge of the business and the domain time to really focus on the kind of high quality output activities. If anyone's got any questions, by the way, feel free to ask them. I suppose I'm more of an interaction kind of guy than just going to stand here and spiel for a bit, I suppose. So I think my next kind of point is about the LateRooms ethos. I joined and had to write a test strategy, and it was kind of as simple as this. We automate as much as possible. I've kind of hammered this home now multiple times. What I want to do is I want us to automate away the kind of useless and kind of repetitive tasks and allow people to kind of use their brains and focus on what they need to do. Everybody owns quality. Without, like I said it before now, we can't test quality, and we have to kind of own it as a team. Test code is treated like production code. A lot of places we have test code just sitting on one person's random machine under somebody's box. That's not the way we kind of do it at LateRooms. We want it in source control, running on kind of pipelines, just like production code is, and then obfuscate data. That's not really a big issue for us. The hotel data we have is kind of in the public domain, so not really a problem for us. We don't use customer data, so it's pretty simple for us. Right. So the journey. This is the kind of standard journey I've seen LateRooms taken. So we start with a load of end-to-end tests. We got ourselves a load of like SEITs who were going to come in and fill a load of Selenium tests for us. We moved to TDD. TDD is test-driven development. So the kind of simple thing is you write a test, you write some code that passes that test, and you refactor that code into something you want to go production ready. It's a simple pattern called red-green refactor. It generally, I use that word, there's always like exceptions to the rule, produces better quality code. The thing with the end-to-end tests is you're kind of just doing the surface to kind of outside in. So the code underneath, we don't really know what kind of quality is. Whereas with TDD, we're trying to push tests down to the lowest level possible. So ideally, we'll get kind of less spaghetti code and more readable code. We then moved to BDD, which is a big shift in the industry. So that's behavioral-driven development. It's very similar to the end-to-end tests in the fact that it really promotes a kind of outside-in kind of approach generally. A lot of the tests like Cucumber and stuff, we kind of talk about feature file, step definitions, and then the kind of page object, for instance. And then what we use at LateRoom is what we kind of call the shift-left automation approach. I'm trying to trademark it at the minute, so no one steal it, please. But the idea is we kind of take a bit from all three, really. And what we try and do is we shift kind of the test down to the lowest possible level. So we kind of, if we can do a unit level, we'll do it. If it's integration, cool. If it's end-to-end, it's cool. But we don't just make end-to-end tests just for the sake of it. Anyone want to hazard a guess how many end-to-end tests we run on LateRooms on a day? Not you or any of the other fronts. Yeah? You can start those, Stu. Don't all guess at once, right?
600.
No, a lot less than that.
60.
A lot less than that.
2.
One more than that. Cool. Yeah, so we use 3 end-to-end tests, which is probably pretty low for kind of for people really. But we kind of have like, say, so for instance, one of our applications, we have over 4,000 unit tests for that. So we kind of follow the old traditional kind of test automation pyramid, a lot of unit tests, not many end-to-end tests. So some tips and tricks I've kind of picked up through my years. So tools that are as inclusive as possible, aka so devs can kind of use them. So if you've got a tool in Java and your devs are C# devs, they're never going to use it. They're just going to not switch the context. So what we try and do is try and get a tool that both can use. The idea being that if you're then struggling on said tool to write some tests, you've got some people there in your kind of office, hopefully, who can say, yeah, this is how you write that code, rather than having to go onto Google and try and Google these kind of things. There's a good community behind them. Not so much a problem with paid tools. So, you know what I mean, if you go and buy a tool, there's going to be a community because they're making money out of it. I know at LateRooms, we've picked up some tools probably from my suggestions that have kind of died a week later. Not because I've picked them up, just because that's the way it is, really. So something like Selenium, for instance, is kind of in vogue and probably in vogue for a few more years. And then push things down to the right level for testing. So that's a quote from Mark Winteringham, testing through the UI rather than the UI. So the idea is, you know what I mean, you push it to the right level. A lot of people just test at the top end because they're kind of not lazy, but you know what I mean, they want to push it, you want to try and push it down to the right level. It'll hopefully make less flaky tests and better for you. Got a quote here, I think. Yep, perfect. So to effectively isolate a defect, start with system level tests and progressively inline and prune until you have the smallest possible tests that demonstrate a defect. So that's Kent Beck. I'm guessing most people know. He's the kind of founder of extreme programming. So this was a kind of quote that I found when I was doing this talk, ready for this talk. I didn't know that. But it's kind of the approach we've taken at LateRooms to try and shrink the test down. You know, rather than having to check that much of a test, we can check that much of a test. And the idea is that it's kind of quicker, easy to maintain, hopefully less flaky as a test. So some more tips and tricks. Accepting that you cannot test everything will really help you focus on your risks and mitigating them. So that's Friendly Test, that's Rich Bradshaw, if anyone doesn't know. I would love to be able to say that was my quote, but it's not. So I think it's a really kind of pertinent statement. I think as testers, we pick up an application, we think, right, how can we test it? How can we test everything? But in reality, we don't have enough time. I mean, it's just as simple as that. So by thinking about that and understanding that, it really helps us focus on what's important to us. Automating your pain points, so it's whether it's build your environments or your tests. If you know what I mean, it takes you 10 minutes to do some testing, but it's 3 days to build your environment. Sounds like you best automate your environment rather than automate your tests. So I think sometimes we talk about it and we just think, right, we need to automate tests, but in reality, we need to automate what needs automating. Flaky tests are part of the course. So Google have a 1.5%. Does anyone read the Google testing blog? So Google testing blog was like, they got 1.5% flaky tests. So this is Google with all their money, resources, and like high quality folk. they get that. They've got loads of cool tools which can kind of automate away the quarantine, the flaky tests, and pick them up for developers to kind of look at. Doesn't mean we shouldn't try and fix them, but like understand that's part of the course. You know what I mean? We build tests and they're flaky. That doesn't mean that we're doing a bad job of automation. That's just the way it is. And then live monitor is your friend. We use this a lot at LateRooms. We're really lucky. We've got some really cool guys who've built a lot of cool monitoring stuff. That means that when anything goes on our website, we know what happens. So we can take a lot more risk. We can release things out to live because we'll know we'll catch them in live within 30, 40 seconds and not have to waste, I don't know, 2 days trying to test it. We're a hotel booking website. We can take a lot more risk than say a medical company can. You know what I mean? No one would release a pacemaker and say, it's all right, we'll monitor it in them. You know what I mean? We're lucky we sell hotels. We can do. So, I want to learn automation. I talked about this before. You don't learn automation, you learn coding principles and tools. You know what I mean? There's Luke Skywalker saying it as it in, you know what I mean? So, some resources. So, there's quite a lot of different online resources. We're lucky we work in IT. People like to write about writing code. So I've used Code School myself and it's pretty good, and I've got it for some of the guys. There's this new one called Code Gaming where you kind of write code that fixes games. One of the guys at our work suggesting it's actually all right to use. You've got some blogs, webinars, podcasts. Depends on what context you want to use in, you know what I mean, in terms of learning. You've got different learning styles. The training videos, for instance, at Microsoft, they do some really good C# ones if people want to learn C#. And the old-fashioned way of asking questions and pairing with a dev. This isn't an exclusive or exhaustive list. This is just kind of like me coming up with a few ideas, you know what I mean? If you want to learn something, I want to learn insert language and put it in Google, and there's probably going to be countless people who've wrote, blogged, you know what I mean, put videos up about it. How can I get started? So, downloading some tools. 2006, if you wanted to start in some sort of automation tech project, it'd probably cost you 10, 15 grand to buy a load of QTB licenses, probably a load of training, a load of all other things. These days, just download the stuff and start cracking, really. Build something quick. If someone says to me it's going to take me 6 months to kind of build a proof of concept, to kind of fix a pain point, you're not really going to get a starter for it. So what you really need to do is think about, right, what can I build quick that's going to satisfy me, and then it's going to give me some more time to kind of carry on and save myself some time. And then the last point, another one from Friendly Tester. I've been asked how I sell automation to stakeholders. I don't. I talked about results information, how I collate it, my choice. The reason I've put that in is, when I've had talks or spoke to people before, they ask me about ROI. What's the ROI? How can we sell people an ROI? And to be honest with you, I don't know what our return on investment in automation is. I wouldn't have a clue. But, you know what I mean, all the business cares about is it ready to go live or not? They don't care whether you've offshored the thing, you've done it with automation, or you've done it yourself in your own time. All they care is this application ready to go live? And I thought it was kind of a really neat way of selling it. So, can we work in Agile with automation? Yep, of course you can. You can do anything you want, you know what I mean? You can whittle a tree down to a chair using a butter knife, but it doesn't mean it's a good approach. Agile kind of relies on fast feedback, fast kind of cycles. Automation is probably one of the quickest ways to do that. It doesn't find new defects, only regressions. You know what I mean? You've only wrote so many tests. As things change, it's not learning about new stuff unless you add them. And then it allows you testers, which I've kind of hammered home now, to do more interesting things. Automation saves us time from kind of rerunning the kind of usual, can we make bookings, can we do this, can we do that? It does that over and over. So it allows the kind of test team and people to think outside the box and think about the edge cases, think about things that the automation isn't picking up. Cool. More takeaways, opinions there. So automation is important. Like I say, I started this talk as automation, we don't really need it, but let's not worry too much about it and kind of switch tact as I was writing it. So your context you're in is important. So Tesla versus LateRooms. LateRooms, the stuff I do there, I'm probably a bit of a cowboy, I'm not going to deny, but you know what I mean, we're a hotel booking website. We're not Tesla, you know what I mean? Obviously, we know what's happened with Tesla recently. And, you know what I mean, what we do and what they do, it's the context they're in. You know what I mean? I would not do what I do in medical software or anything as probably serious as that. I hope this never goes to anyone important. So, exploratory testing is an integral part. So, the main thing is you need to do a combination of the two. Automation allows you to do, hopefully, good exploratory testing and forget about the things you already know about. At the end of the day, testing, it's just kind of risk versus speed. You know what I mean? You can deliver stuff really quick, but you don't know how strong it is. Or you can deliver maybe bulletproof software, and it might take you weeks and months. It's kind of combining the two in the context that you're in and starting to apply that, I suppose. Cool. So there's ways to get in touch. So if you want to email me, you want to add me on Twitter, give me some abuse on Twitter, feel free. I'm always open for a bit of abuse. Nice one. Everyone, thanks for listening. Got any questions? That's all, Clara.